Okay, and we are live. This is our GEO live stream. I think probably our second real one here. My name is Josh Davis. I'm the content manager for Grassroots Economic Organizing. Adjoa, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Adjoa Ifateo, and I'm a co-editor.
And I'm Christopher Preciado, helping out with some of the technology. Um, by the way, how's my volume? Is it okay?
Everything sounds good to me. And we have somebody in the chat that says hi, although their name is AA. So I don't know if that's a real person or a bot. You never know nowadays. um, but yeah, while we're waiting for a little confirmation that all of the audio is good, I will try to come up with things to say. No. Yeah. So, well, all right, we're good. I was going to start talking about the weather. So we're safe from that. Um, no small talk about the weather. So, um, one of the things that I wanted to talk about this week is something that's been coming up more and more often, and I thought it was going to go away after the Super Bowl when there were all the commercials. The Super Bowl, not this last one, but the one before, when all of the commercials were for crypto, this and crypto that, and every celebrity telling you to invest in crypto, and then immediately thereafter the whole crypto market tanked. And so I was hoping that that would be the end of it, that we would stop hearing about crypto, but oh no, it's still around. And the particular form in which I find it kind of troubling or problematic for our arena, sphere that we work in with cooperatives is something called distributed autonomous organizations, or DAOs, DAOs for short. And um, I don't necessarily want to try to explain all of like how the blockchain works or anything like that, but sufficient to say that DAO is organization, or is what a DAO is a contract that exists on the blockchain and that automatically executes, and so that you can make agreements between multiple people, and conceivably set up like voting systems using these contracts so that you can have some kind of semblance of a democratic organization, quote unquote, on the chain. These are problematic, and we do have co-op people who are quite into them, and promoting them and trying to use them for different things. I'm not a fan for a number of reasons. There's the obvious environmental issues that come along with all things cryptocurrency, which all DAOs are of necessity. So there's those, but a specific problem that arises with DAOs when trying to do anything resembling a co-op through them is that they are code. And so while a lot of people talk about DAOs as though that's like, you make an agreement with people, and you set up how your DAO is going to operate, and you have conversations in English, you make decisions, and and sign a contract. Well, the problem is that the actual contracts look a little something like this, and I will have to share my screen here. Here we go. So this right here, and this is from a blog that I wrote and posted on our website here. You can see last week. And so this right here is the actual smart contract, as they're called. Now, if you can tell me what this says or does, you're a better person than I am. You obviously have to be a coder of some variety to understand what this says. Now, this should be obvious why this is a problem for doing a co-op using this quote unquote, this technology. It'd be like, and as I say in the blog, it would be like if somebody asked you to join a co-op, and when you were presented with the bylaws, they're written in a foreign language. And when you ask for a translation, you get like a paraphrase summary in English, but not a word for word translation. And when you sign the actual document, it's in a language that you don't speak. Like, is that something that you would sign up for? And I don't think it's something that most people would be comfortable with for obvious reasons. You have to take the word of whoever can read the thing to tell you what's in it. And of course, this is on the internet. So I don't know if you're aware, but people have been known to lie on the internet from time to time. So this is this is a real problem. And it's not just a theoretical problem. A lot of these DAOs have turned into what they call rug pulls or something. There was some line of code in there that somebody was either able to exploit, or that was put in there purposefully, that allowed all the money that everybody had put into their joint fund that they were going to decide how to spend, got siphoned away, a bunch of it, because it's a piece of code that works automatically. And so, like anything, if somebody knows how to make it do something that they want it to do, they can make that happen. So this is a real problem for DAOs. And I suppose that maybe for people who are savvy and can read this language and can for themselves like see what they're getting into, that conceivably it could be something that would be all right. But I really don't think it's a good idea for anybody really to be pushing these things for just normal people like all of us here, and probably most people who watch this, that have no idea what this means and are not going to be able to verify for themselves what's in it. So I'll stop rambling now. If anybody wants to chime in, or
Where is this coming from? Any particular organization? And do we know anything about their history?
So there are a number of DAOs. They're basically, it's an organizational structure that arose on the Ethereum blockchain. So of course, blockchain was the original blockchain for Bitcoin was basically just for buying digital tokens for real dollars for actual money, and then exchanging those tokens with other people, hoping that the price would go up, and then you sell them for dollars later. Well, so Ethereum is another one of those, doing the same kind of things, but then also allows you to write little like programs in the blockchain, that, because the whole idea with all this cryptocurrency stuff is that it's all the data or whatever is stored in like lots of different places, a distributed ledger as they call it. So it can't easily be changed. Once it's done, it's kind of set in stone, because you can't change all of the different ledgers. So people, once that became available, that you could make little programs on the blockchain, people started using it, that ability to do different things. One of them was to say, oh well, I'm going to have a DAO to as an example, a group of people wanted to purchase some some sci-fi textbook. They started a DAO to buy like a first edition of Dune by Frank Herbert, and and so they all put their money in, and then they voted on, I don't know how much they wanted to bid for the book or whatever, using this smart contract. And so people in technology and, who are working in technology already, or, have been following crypto and who are also interested in co-ops, kind of sort of like, oh, maybe we can do some co-op stuff with it. There's actually, I don't remember their name offhand, or I don't remember it exactly, and I don't really want to give them publicity, but there are some actual DAOs who call themselves co-ops. It seems questionable to me. I don't know, but fortunately, the people who I am most familiar with who are kind of in a similar sort of space are the disco people, distributed cooperative organizations. And they're a group of people who started out looking at DAOs as a way to do co-op stuff, and then quickly realized, oh, this blockchain stuff is kind of nonsense and we don't really need it. And then proceeded to, create their own system of, their own kind of software for keeping track of different types of value that people were contributing to their cooperative, which does actually translations. So that's like, so that was like a good thing that came out of it. But there are lots of people still, and if you like, kind of go on the platform.coop website for the Platform Cooperativism Consortium, you'll find stuff about DAOs on there. It's a regular topic of conversation at all the platform co-op stuff nowadays. So this is kind of my shot across the bow, I suppose, and saying, look, I think there's some serious problems. Obviously, the people who are supporters are not going to be bringing this stuff up, but I do think it's incumbent upon us who are just trying to think critically about this stuff to, not keep our mouths shut too much.
Right. So your problem with it is mainly that people who join may not know what they're getting into because the language isn't clear.
Well, yeah, that it's really not possible, for people to know what they're signing up for unless they can read the code. And that like that's a serious problem. There are many other problems with the whole blockchain technology. Why I think it's not appropriate for people trying to do sustainable cooperative stuff. For one of the big reasons that I point to in the blog is that while these things, DAOs and blockchain in general, but DAOs in particular, have been around for several years now, nobody can point to anything they've actually accomplished with them, like in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
There are people, all the stuff that the existing DAOs do is just buy and sell cryptocurrencies and NFTs and do stuff on the blockchain. And so they're like organizations that, it's where a bunch of people put some of their Bitcoin into a group wallet, and then they vote on how to spend that, what to do with that money, which is a kind of standard co-op thing. But they're just, it's only within the crypto ecosystem. So on social.coop, where there are a number of people who are both interested in cooperatives and tech, and several who are supporters of DAOs and crypto and stuff, a guy named the Blockchain Socialist among them, who goes by that moniker, asked them specifically, like, can you point me to some examples of a DAO that has done something in the real world that's good, right? That's a positive thing, and that couldn't have been done without the blockchain bit? And nobody could point to anything. Nobody had anything. The only thing I got was a couple of people pointing to DAOs that just were like, putting money together to support an artist through buying their NFTs. Like, okay, that's but that's still just on the blockchain. And then, some academic articles about the potential for DAOs that they could, conceivably do something good. But again, it's been a minute, and people have been, and there's nothing really to show for it. And I think there's some reasons for that. Another reason why I have a problem with it is just encouraging people like normies, as they would call like people like us who are not already into the crypto thing, to get involved with this, like so that we can be part of this DAO co-op thing. Is that in order to get involved, you first have to buy into the crypto market to begin with. You have to first buy some Ethereum so that you can join this DAO, which means you are putting your finances into a space, the crypto space, that is full of scams. Like I would say mostly scams. And there's been plenty of studies that have, found that a lot of the activity in trading and stuff is people like buying and selling to themselves to try to arbitrarily drive prices up and stuff like that. And it's full of Ponzi schemes, and it's full of this kind of multi-level marketing type stuff. And so by encouraging people to get involved with DAOs, I see it as like it's dangerous because you're just encouraging people to get involved with this crypto stuff, which is largely fraudulent. And now with FTX, and there's every single day there's new stories about there's some the one of two banks that actually would work with crypto people is now collapsing because they got involved with crypto. So I think it's something that we should stay well away from as co-op people on just on that alone. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely sounds. Go ahead, Chris.
I think when I read this, I didn't see a footnote to that or an end note to where you said that you asked around if anybody could point to any examples. Was there a footnote there? I think that would be a good footnote and preserve that post.
Yes, it is. I'm sure that made it in here. Okay. Okay, right here we have it. The major one, despite having been around for several years at this point, no one seems to be able to point to any real life things they've been used for. I put out a request for examples of DAOs doing something useful in real life on social.coop and got nothing. So you want the link to the
that would
thread.
be a good one to add in the article.
I should do that. I will find it, and while you're talking about your stuff, I will go dig that up. I thought about doing it, but Mastodon, as much as I do think it's far superior to Twitter, I marked that post or whatever, but I have to like scroll down a bajillion notifications to find it at this point. So but I will go look for it and hopefully post it while we're talking about the next thing.
Yes. So I read this one today, and when I was reading, I was like, all right, this is an opportunity to show my glaring ignorance about about the blockchain. And I got to do my best to not look too much like a fool. But yeah, we kind of came across the same thing in Cops Not Cages, where we don't really talk about blockchain stuff because one of our members just on the pollution. So that's like a block. So we haven't really been able to go further, but there is fraud in the co-op world. And like there's two big things that happen in Chicago, and I sucks I can't even really talk about it online. But I like what you wrote though at the end of the article that says let's see, I highlighted it. It said we need what's towards the end, like we don't need the blockchain or any other hyped up technology to build a cooperative commonwealth. We need more solidarity, not more gee whiz technology. Yeah, and when I was thinking, when I was reading that, I was kind of thinking about what that means, and I see it as a lot of it. It's like it's building new ways of relating to each other and new types of relationships, and it's kind of sometimes kind of tough to navigate what type of relationships. For sure, we need more direct relationships where we don't have all these like intermediaries, including like all this code that we don't understand. These in certain ways. But yeah, one thing that I have problem figuring out is to what extent where do you draw the line about these intermediary relationships, including stuff like this. Um, but in Chicago though, like for co-ops to survive, like one of the things I've been telling friends, like, hey, we should be aware of like this type of scam that's happened. Like there's not into the blockchain in particular, but there's something that happened in Chicago. It's like a really big deal, like a very profitable scam that happened on one of the co-ops, and it's my and some of this stuff, it can't be put out in the open for whatever reason, and that kind of verifies uh, what you were writing, Josh, about how like we need more solidarity, like, and to me like better in person relationships to really defend each other, because a lot of too much intermediation. I think that's one of the reasons why we have challenges in building the co-ops and any other problems that we have in
Mm-hmm.
life. But yeah, and I wasn't aware about the evolution of the arguments. I remember, and it's only upon reading this I realized, yeah, the like crypto. I remember it used to always be about avoiding state control, or developing autonomous communities and stuff. And yeah, that dialogue, I don't really hear that anymore. It is, and maybe that's because it went mainstream or whatever. But I also don't know anywhere where I don't know anybody who's talked about crypto to me, um, talking about it anymore within that framework. They just don't talk about it anymore. And I remember
Yeah.
when I tried to use crypto, um, a while ago, it was already like heavily regulated. Um,
Right.
And
in
it still isn't really. I mean.
Well, for what I wanted to do, um, it was like really regular. Like, how am I, like, I'm giving the government my information? Like, how is this? I don't want to do that. Um, but yeah, that's something that's disappeared. I wonder what's next though. What evolution is next in any of this blockchain stuff. But yeah, thanks for the write up though, because yeah, there's no way in heck that I can do stuff like that. I look at that stuff, if I can't understand it, I can't work with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
and that's we should be trying to. It seems to me that we should be trying to build relationships and structures that we can at least understand, because I feel like that's the exact. I think one of the very reasons why we're oppressed is because we deal with stuff that has been purposefully set up for us to not be able to understand it, and
Hmm.
then we have to we try to navigate it or whatever. Um, so I think it's good to not feel ashamed that you don't understand something, because we have limits to what we can know, what we can learn, and we really got to focus on building stuff that we understand and that is easily understandable by our peers.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, what's the point of joining something you don't really know what you're into, or how it works, or how to protect yourself even.
Hmm. Yeah, and that just, Chris, since you mentioned that, just to make it clear for anybody who hasn't read or won't read the article or my blog post about it, like, yeah, when crypto started out, it was, this is an alternative currency that the state doesn't control. And then at some point you stopped hearing that, and all of a sudden it was, this is a great investment where you can get a bunch of that state controlled currency that used to be so bad, but now it's like, don't you want a whole bunch of it? This is how you can get a bunch of it. And nobody like comments on that. And now like that has kind of like, that's evaporating with the the crypto market tanking. And so it's like, well, you can't make that argument anymore. Well, here's a reason to keep people involved as well. You could do some like co-op something or another. And just one last thing that I'll mention, I came across this KPMG, who is a big tax firm, corporate tax firm. They have a little, I don't know if you want a white paper or something like that on how crypto investors and crypto builders or makers, making crypto projects can exit, can possibly using cooperatives to do so while avoiding securities regulations. And there is a
Wow.
footnote for this in there on the blog post. And so because co-op shares are treated differently by the SEC, because they're obviously not like a share on the stock market, they don't have to abide by a lot of the SEC, like any of the SEC regulations. And so people who are in crypto looking to exit their investments, i.e. sell them to somebody for actual money, and don't want to have to do the SEC thing where they like tell you all the details, well, they can use a co-op and sell you a co-op membership. So that's what KPMG is wanting to do with co-op stuff in the crypto space right now. So this is, it's a big deal. And I think that a lot of people in the co-op world who might otherwise be who might think, oh, well, we can, do something useful with this. I think it's a lot more likely that we're going to be the ones who end up getting used by them. Like they'll use our stuff for their ends, not the other way around. So, yeah, anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now on that.
I learned a great new phrase though from the solution in search of a problem. That's yeah, and honestly, that's because I've been doing that myself a lot. Like, should I do this or is it just creating? Is it really needed? And is it just creating another form in unnecessary intermediation? But yeah, I should have known that one already.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I learned it reading
Yeah.
it.
Well, and I mean, and what you said, I actually wanted to dig into that a little bit more, and not what you said, Chris, about and I don't know at all what you're referring to in Chicago, but I do know from my own experience here in Montana and from talking to other people around the country that there is a real issue with people and groups. Usually, though, it's mostly individuals claiming to be a co-op in some sense, claiming some kind of cooperative identity when the reality is it's not cooperative at all. And I feel like a lot of places can kind of fall prey to that, people using that language because co-op people are often very nice and not super aggressive or confrontational. So I think it is something we need to be aware of, that there's all kinds of grifters out there. This is just the world that we live in, and we shouldn't think that, oh, we're immune somehow because we're trying to do good stuff. Like, oh, grifters love people who think they're just trying to do good stuff. So
So I won't go into specifics, but one had to do with theft of funds, and then another one, it was a very clever way to get tens of thousands of dollars from a co-op. Very clever way, and and they could do that to anybody, really. The way they did it, it could happen to anybody. And maybe offline I'll talk about it. But it's I was kind of, it seemed like the people who were victims of this in Chicago have not really been able to talk about it. And I don't know, maybe I'm saying too much right now. But that's where the direct relationships are really important in developing those, because sometimes there's people like they snipe others and you can't even talk about it, how we're being victimized. And do we need more intermediation? I don't know, but I think direct knowledge to stuff like that is really key, those direct relationships.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's why transparency is so important. Just, like the more people who know what's going on in any given situation, the more people who can say, hey, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right, or that doesn't, who can conceivably catch on to something. And so often we're not used to being transparent about a lot of things. And then if something does go wrong, we don't want to be transparent about what went wrong because we're embarrassed about it, or, makes us look bad, or it's going to be bad for the business or whatever. But then, yeah, nobody else, we need to warn other people. Like, other people need to know that, like, this is a problem. We don't want it to happen to more than one co-op. So hopefully we can figure out some way to at least, get that information out there without undue negativity towards any particular co-op. But just like with the elderly people, including people that I know personally, being scammed by the Amazon, we saw a suspicious thing on your Amazon account, scammers. I think it's the same kind of thing, or it's, for the same reason that people need to be open about that when that happens. And so we can, spread awareness and save more people from falling into that stuff. But so I think probably enough talk about crypto, and enough of me talking. Chris, did you want to start a conversation about what the structure stuff we were talking about before the stream?
Yeah. So on the last stream, we were talking about worker cooperatives, or so-called cooperatives, where shares are part of the structure. And so I was curious of if y'all have any thoughts about the situations where the workers, who are also the owners, are part of this share system, right? It's a corporation, has a share system, and the workers have 51% of the shares, or 51% of the vote at board of directors meetings. 51%, and then other, like, investors, they have the 49%. How does this? What have y'all seen about how this works out, or are there any benefits to this to consider, or what are the weaknesses or dangers of that?
I haven't seen any co-ops with those kind of numbers, but it really seems pretty high for the investors to have 49%. That's really dangerous. They could easily flip that to some kind of control. I believe Equal Exchange had some investors, but they didn't have voting power. They didn't have a lot of way that they could overturn the whole balance. And I haven't really heard of others that have similar kind of structures, but that one really, really sounds a bit too much. I think something, much, much smaller would be more appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, and the standard, as Audra said, is like what Equal Exchange has done with preferred shares. And there are many co-ops that have, that offer preferred shares as a way to, get equity from outside their members without having to get a loan. But preferred shares, as Audra said, have no voting power, and they pay, they're not required to actually pay anything back. They're called preferred shares because if there's money, at the end of the year that's, excess, it's going to be distributed. Before it gets distributed to the members as patronage, it gets distributed to the preferred shareholders. They're preferred in that sense. They get paid out first. But like with Equal Exchange, they have a target rate, and the last time I read, there an article, that they wrote about it, it was, I think their target rate was 6% per year. And if the business did bad and they didn't have as much money as they thought they would, they might not pay 6%. Although I think they'd always manage to hit their target. But it's but that's the thing, it comes with no voting control. So the standard up until now, until recently anyway, has been outside investors get zero voting control, zero board seats. And that's because one of our cooperative principles is independence and autonomy, or autonomy and independence. So that is, having a board of directors that's 49% has been voted into that position by outside investors, by just people who have nothing to do with the co-op except putting money in. That, to me, we are now, you're 2%, right? I mean, if the investors had 3% more, they'd have a majority, and then we'd just be back at capitalism once more. So you're 3% now back from capitalism. Like, no, this is not okay. It's and I mean, even like, we didn't even have the conversation as whether or not investors should be allowed any voting share. Like, where is should we give them 5%, 10%, let them elect one board member of 10 or something? Like, it's right to nearly 50%. I mean, 49, it's 50%. It's half. Like, let's not kid ourselves. 49% is half. And so, yeah, no, I think it's a problem. I'm not a fan of it. I know there are a couple of states with cooperative incorporation statutes that allow for this kind of thing, but I think we should really be pushing back on it. And yeah, but it could ramble on forever. I want to do, like, Chris asked, what's the argument in favor? I know the argument in favor is going to be, it's how you get money, right, for your co-op. You need financing. And so most investors, because they just want to take their big pile of money and make it into a bigger pile of money, they're not just going to, give it to you with nothing in return, or just, the promise of maybe getting some money. They want control, just like because we live in America, that we live in a capitalist economy. And so that's why you would make these concessions as a co-op. So yeah, there's a whole lot more to unpack there, but I don't want to talk forever.
Yeah, that control thing is really serious. When Equal Exchange did it, the investors were churches and nuns groups who wanted to make a contribution, not to make money. So yeah, that's quite a long way. And it sounds like, some people who want to make money have discovered the cooperative and figured a way to try to turn it into something that they can benefit from. And we have to be on guard against that.
Thanks for answering that curiosity I had, because I saw it. I was thinking about it recently. I saw it. I'm not pursuing it anywhere. I wouldn't pursue it anywhere, but if I see it becoming a pattern here, it's good to have something like this recorded. The last one to just slide someone's way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think there's going to be more. I think you'll see more in Chicago, and we'll see more in other places as well. Like I said, there are already a couple of states. I think Wyoming is one of them, with a really nasty co-op incorporation statute that basically allows for co-ops that look nothing at all like co-ops as we know them, just using, keeping the same name. And so I think at some point it's going to get to where we have to be like, co-op is not going to be good enough anymore. I mean, I would like to think that we'll be able to stop the, worker co-op, even just worker co-op brand, from being watered down so much where it doesn't mean much anymore. But the way things are going, there's a, like Audra said, there's a lot of big money people who seem to have discovered co-ops, and maybe they've exhausted everything else, and so they're finally coming for us. Mm-hmm. But what they're going to keep doing their thing, and if they keep talking about their co-op stuff and keep doing these 50% investor owned quote unquote co-ops, it is going to get to a point where it's going to have to be like, we're going to have to come up with a new name or something that like designates, no, this is the real ones,
Right.
not one of those co-ops, right?
Right. Yeah, they're going to give co-ops a bad name. Something that they did in, I think, 2004 in Europe, and the ICA had to come out and, say these guys are not really co-ops because they were really horrible to the workers. And so there was a whole movement, even in the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives, to define what a worker co-op was so that these guys could not pretend to be worker co-ops. So we may have to go back to something like that where we make it very clear what the difference is. And a real worker co-op or some corporation masquerading as a worker co-op, because that name has, a lot of pull, and people want to support worker co-ops now. And so they wanted to cash in on the hard work that the co-op movement has done to get people to be in solidarity with workers. And so they want to use it for their own benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, and I will say, like, I don't want to be just completely negative. Like, I can certainly imagine a situation in which you have one of these co-ops that's 50% investor owned and controlled. And they start a co-op and they employ a bunch of people, and they do, have a business that makes money and provides, jobs that are in better conditions and have better wages than your standard, capitalist job working in, low wage service sectors. I can see that, that would be a thing. But is that all we're going for? Is that, should we not just be pushing for a 15-hour minimum wage and Medicare for all? Then, I mean, it's like it can be better than the really messed up situation that we have that's the norm right now, and still not be good enough, I guess, is what I'm saying, at least from my perspective. So I don't want to make it sound like there's no possible way in which anybody could benefit from any of this stuff, if it's not a real co-op or doesn't have, in our view. But still, it doesn't mean that it's, they should come up with a different name for whatever there is they're doing, and don't call it, right?
Yeah, I think, your point is we have to be very careful to make sure that it really is a cooperative and not something that a corporation is going to use to just make more money and screw the workers in the end.
Mm-hmm. Or just not live up to our ideals. Like, even if it doesn't rise to the level of totally screwing people over, and like, it doesn't have to get that bad to still be like, no, that's not cool.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And that's what and there are lines to be drawn. There's no easy answers for a lot of this stuff, because everything is always fuzzy, but we need to have the conversations at least so we can kind of agree where we all kind of think the line should be, rather than just not have the conversations at all, and then somebody can just go and decide, well, my line's like way out here, and if it's completely different than the consensus, who even knows, because we never even had this conversation. So I'm all about just being more open about all this stuff. I know not everybody agrees with me on that, but we're the ones with the live stream, so I guess too bad.
have the conversations and get the phone calls, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yes, link in the description. You can. So yeah, that's good. Ajwa, do you have anything you wanted to?
Yeah, I want to talk about the effort to get Ella Baker Day passed in this country. Ella Joe Baker, I like to call her, because I live in a housing co-op in Washington, D.C., named after her, and we use her middle name, her nickname, Ella Joe Baker. But to get Ella Baker Day started in this country, to have April 15th or the 16th designated as a national holiday, where Ella Baker is recognized. And there's a woman in Brooklyn who um, came up. Well, she started this campaign. The first Ella Baker Day was held at University of Virginia, I believe, in 2011. And so um, her story was that the governor wanted to have a Confederate holiday, and she was incensed. I think her name is Hezbollah. No, it's an unusual name, but the last name is Paul. And so she was outraged and tried to figure out other people, especially people of color, that could be celebrated. And she came up with the Ella Baker Day. So they had that in 2011, and she started a campaign to get different states to recognize Ella Baker for her civil rights organizing. She's known as the godmother of the civil rights movement. But a lot of people don't know that Ella Baker was one of the first people to, along with George Schuyler, to start a whole cooperative federation across the country. The Young Negroes Cooperative League had a big conference in 1930 and had several chapters around the country. And this was during the Depression, which makes it really amazing that they were able to do this kind of work. And so, they didn't last very long, but it was, amazing work that they did. And Ella continued to work on cooperatives for like 45 years, even through the civil rights work that she did. And after that, and so her whole style was participatory, not top down. No need for leaders who would know everything, but she believed in educating regular folks about some skills, and also to realize that regular folks had information. They knew how to do things, and to tap into that information. And so there's I think New York, South Carolina, of course North Carolina, where Ella grew up in, have already had people to support the idea. And so we have an article now where you can go in, you can find resolutions. She has sample resolutions that you can, make, conform to your area, your locality, and go before your city council or state government, a county government, and ask them to adopt the resolution in support of Ella Baker Day. And it would really be a nice thing to do. In North Carolina, on April 15th or the 16th, I'm not sure which one, but they're having an Ella Baker celebration. The Ella Baker Education Project every year educates young people about Ella Baker and the important work she did. So this April, they will be in Littleton, North Carolina, acknowledging Ella's importance to the movement and the country. So I hope that's something that people can get behind. So we have a big state like New York who has gotten behind it, and I hope we can do something like that here in DC pretty soon.
We can find ways to celebrate it even before it becomes like a government recognized holiday, right? Maybe
Yes.
part of the day is to go talk to people to recognize it, but we still just do it. I'm glad you mentioned it because I know I think in Chicago there's a squat. I don't know if it's around recently. I mean, I don't know if it's around nowadays, but I think it popped up in the past few years called Ella Jo Baker. And
Ah, cool.
this is a cool. I'm gonna share this to people and talk about co-ops.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
excellent. Yeah, she did a lot of great work, and she's not even known for that. That's which is so amazing. And another person, Helena Wilson, I think the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Workers came out of Chicago, and Helena Wilson was the wife of one of the the people that worked on the train, and she organized a lot of consumer cooperatives in the Chicago area. She did a lot of union work, and she's very not very well known either, but she was inducted, well, she will be inducted into the Cooperative Hall of Fame this year because of her work. And she is, even less well known, but she did some really, really great work. And it would be nice if, and so I think, Chicago was the main base. So if people, you know, I don't know if they even have any kind of a society or any kind of recognition of her, but it would really be nice to celebrate her work like they did in North Carolina when Ella Baker was inducted in last October. They had their own celebration, their local celebration. And it was just amazing to see at least 200 people come out, all the local government officials, state, county, and regular folks. It was just really, really an exciting time for one of their own to be recognized in the Co-op Hall of Fame. It was really a great thing. So, if anybody in Chicago wants to do Helena Wilson justice, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass word around. And a friend gave me a labor map for Chicago. It was like pretty cool. He gave it to me this year, and it had all these sites that I just never heard of, and like the history tied to it. I want to see if Helena's on it. I gave it
Oh
to
yeah,
I
that'd be
gave it to a
great.
friend as reading material. Recently, the cops put him in the hospital, and I went
Mm.
to visit him, and he asked for reading material. I was like, "You're gonna like this labor map, I'm pretty sure, so I'll give it to you." So I don't know where the labor map
Mhm.
is, but and if Helena's not on it, I'll probably have to help him to put Helena on it.
Yeah, yeah. And you can actually go to heroes.coop. That's the Cooperative Development Foundation's website for the Co-op Hall of Fame, and they have a little story about Helena Wilson there. So if people want more information, they can go there.
Yeah, we'll
Actually, we
have to
probably need
try
to
to get
do
an
that.
article on
Yeah, I was
Geo.
just thinking Geo needs to do the same thing. Yeah.
Um, if you know anybody, Adjoa, who knows about Helena Wilson.
Yes, the researcher. I don't know if she would be game, but we can ask her to do an article for us.
For sure.
Yeah, and if you want us to take pictures on the ground, what things look like today of any like historical areas, we can do that. Send some pictures in
Oh,
of
that'd be
Chicago.
great.
Yeah.
That'll be excellent. Yeah, especially the labor thing. That connection is real strong. So that'd be great.
Yeah, and if anybody does want to uh, celebrate Ella Baker Day this year, there is again the campaign website that has, as they say, logos, flyers, stickers, and other event day information and things that you can use to celebrate your own local event, whether it's officially recognized or not. So, um, yeah,
Absolutely.
all righty.
And I guess we should say people should come to the website, geo.coop, GEO, grassroots economic organizing.coop for more information on all of these stories.
Geo.coop. How much time do we have left, Chris?
We
Five
have
five
5 minutes.
minutes.
We have 5 minutes. Well, that's probably not enough time to talk about the community organizing in Slovenia that I was pretty interested to read about when I posted it, found it on Shareable, and snagged it to cross post it on our website. But definitely something worth looking into. Slovenia's IMZ celebrates 10 years of citizens' assemblies. The kind of brief synopsis is back in 2012, so kind of right around the time of Occupy, a little bit after, there were also a lot of protests in Slovenia and citizens very not happy with their government. And out of those big protests came these citizens' assemblies that are explicitly nonpartisan, democratic, and they have apparently been successful in leaning on their local elected officials to get various things done. And there's an interview, the article is an interview with a couple of the members, and one of them says, I think some of the politicians might be a little bit, nervous when they hear from one of the citizens assemblies, which is, of course, exactly what you want, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's I mean, imagine something like that happening in this country. That's what we need. Mm-hmm. We need the exact same thing where people would come together and talk about what's going on in their neighborhoods and their towns and cities and hold politicians accountable.
Mm-hmm.
I really wish the participatory budgeting thing could have taken off in this country. But we, the people, really decide where our tax monies are spent. And that would be a great project.
I mean, it's not, it does go on here and there. It can definitely, be spread. There's the participatory budgeting project, and but yeah, we definitely need more of that stuff.
Yeah, there might be two of those in Chicago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I haven't gotten the latest. I've written something where I propose a lot more. Maybe we can talk about that someday. Based off of some like liberal precedents, like they weren't even like radical. These were liberal Democrats doing some interesting things in Chicago in the 70s.
So this is like neighborhood councils or something get money from the city and then they do participatory process to.
So in Chicago, I think there might be two wards where the aldermen or the residents have set up participatory budgeting for stuff that affects the ward within the ward. I gotta look into
fabulous.
it. It's not my area, so that's why I don't know as much.
But you made a proposal anyway.
No. For my neighborhood, I made a proposal for my neighborhood though.
Yeah, those would be great stories to find out what people are actually doing. It's been a while since I looked at that, but I'm glad to know that there's two in Chicago.
Yeah, there might be two now. Could be more, but I don't. I gotta look into it and get some updates.
Yeah.
Yep, sounds great.
Yeah, we can talk about it next time. Yeah. And we'll should we call this a stream?
Let's call it.
Say good. All right. Good night.
Good night.